A humble young woman saves a millionaire from an accident, but days later, something unexpected happens. Rain fell in heavy sheets over the streets of downtown Seattle. The rhythmic drumming of drops on the pavement mingled with the hum of car engines and distant horns, creating a chaotic symphony that Emma Parker barely noticed. Her focus was on the small cart she had set up outside the entrance to a craft market. She was carefully packing unsold handmade trinkets, her fingers moving deftly despite the chill that had numbed them hours ago. The day had been slow, too slow to ease the constant knot in her stomach. Rent was due in less than a week, and her sales weren't nearly enough to cover it. Still, she forced herself to breathe deeply, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face as she folded a stack of embroidered scarves. "One day," she whispered to herself, "this won't be so hard." Emma was about to zip her worn duffel bag when a screech of tires split the air. She turned sharply, her heart leaping into her throat. Across the street, a sleek black car had swerved into the intersection, narrowly missing a delivery truck. The car spun out of control, slamming into a light pole with a deafening crash. Emma dropped her bag and bolted toward the scene without thinking twice. Her sneakers splashed through puddles as she reached the wreck, where steam hissed ominously from the crumpled hood. Inside, a man was slumped over the wheel, unconscious. His face was pale, a streak of blood running down his temple. "Sir! Sir, can you hear me?" Emma called, her voice trembling. When he didn't respond, she yanked the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Rain soaked her to the bone as she scanned the scene, desperate for help. The truck driver, who had narrowly avoided the collision, was already on his phone, likely calling 911. Emma's eyes darted back to the man in the car. She couldn't wait. The airbag had deployed, but she could see the shallow rise and fall of his chest. He was alive, for now. Adrenaline surged through her as she climbed onto the hood and reached through the shattered window to unlock the door. Ignoring the sharp edges of broken glass that nicked her fingers, she pulled it open and leaned in. "Come on," she murmured, looping her arms under his. He was heavy, his tailored suit drenched and cold to the touch, but she managed to drag him out of the car and onto the wet sidewalk just as sirens blared in the distance. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing a trembling hand against his pulse. Relief washed over her when she felt a faint but steady rhythm beneath her fingertips. 2 days later, Emma was back at her modest studio apartment, a cramped yet cozy space filled with shelves of beads, fabric, and paints. She sat at her small work table, trying to focus on a custom order for a client. But her mind kept drifting back to the accident. She had left the scene as soon as paramedics arrived, not wanting to stick around and answer questions. She wasn't used to attention, and the idea of being in the spotlight, even briefly, made her uncomfortable. She glanced at the local news app on her phone. The story had made headlines. Tech mogul Noah Stone survives near-fatal crash. She had recognized his face immediately when the reporters aired his photo. Noah Stone, CEO of Stone Enterprises, a name synonymous with luxury tech and innovation. He was a billionaire who often graced magazine covers, always impeccably dressed and surrounded by people just as wealthy as he was. Emma shook her head, setting her phone aside. People like him lived in a world so far removed from hers that it might as well have been a different planet. Their paths had crossed for only a moment, and she had no illusions that he would remember her. Later that evening, as Emma finished dinner, a knock on her door startled her. She wasn't expecting anyone. She hesitated, wiping her hands on her apron before crossing the room. Peeking through the peephole, she froze. Noah Stone stood on the other side of her door. His appearance was different from the polished man she had seen on TV. His face was still bruised from the crash, and he looked out of place in her run-down apartment building, his leather shoes and tailored coat starkly contrasting the scuffed floors and peeling paint of the hallway. Emma hesitated before opening the door. "Mr. Stone?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," he said, his voice steady but low. I hope I'm not intruding, but are you Emma Parker? Her breath caught. How do you know my name? I asked around, he admitted, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I owe you my life. You saved me, and I couldn't let that go without saying thank you. Emma opened the door fully, still unsure of what to say. You don't owe me anything, she said, shaking her head. I just did what anyone would have done. Noah studied her for a moment, his piercing gaze softening. You and I both know that's not true. Most people would have kept walking or waited for the paramedics. You acted, that's rare. Emma felt a blush creep up her cheeks. I'm just glad you're okay. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a check, already signed. Please, he said, holding it out to her. I know you said I don't owe you, but this is the least I can do. Emma glanced at the check, her eyes widening at the amount. Far more than she could ever earn in a year. She stepped back, shaking her head. I can't take that. Why not? Because, she said firmly, what I did wasn't about money. For the first time in a long while, Noah was at a loss for words. He folded the check and slid it back into his pocket, nodding slowly. All right, but maybe I can help in another way. Emma frowned. What do you mean? I'd like to know more about you, he said, his expression sincere. You saved my life, and I don't even know who you are. Emma hesitated, unsure of how to respond. But something in Noah's tone, something honest, made her decide to give him a chance. The grey Seattle morning filtered through Emma's small apartment window as she sipped her coffee, trying to shake the lingering unease from Noah's visit. It wasn't every day that a billionaire knocked on her door. She couldn't stop replaying their conversation, the way his piercing eyes seemed to search for something beyond her words, beyond her modest surroundings. She pushed the thoughts aside and focused on her to-do list for the day. The craft fair was coming up in a week, and she had custom orders to finish before then. Losing herself in her work had always been her way of escaping the chaos of life, and today would be no different. Or so she thought. Noah Stone sat in his corner office, the panoramic view of the city doing little to distract him from the folder on his desk. Inside were notes and background details about Emma Parker. He had asked his assistant to look into her after she saved his life, not to invade her privacy, but because something about her stuck with him. In his world, people rarely did anything without an angle, but Emma? She had refused his check, dismissed his gratitude, and gone back to her quiet life. He glanced at the photos of her handcrafted items, intricately embroidered scarves, painted wooden jewelry boxes, and delicate beaded bracelets. There was a kind of warmth in her work that was missing in the sleek, impersonal designs that filled his company's stores. He knew he should be focused on his upcoming board meeting, but instead, he found himself making a decision. Reschedule my afternoon, he told his assistant. I'm going out. Emma was painting a delicate floral design onto a set of wooden coasters when the knock came. She groaned inwardly, assuming it was her landlord with another friendly reminder about her overdue rent. But when she opened the door, her stomach sank. Noah, she said, blinking in surprise. Hi, he said, his voice calm but confident. He held up a to-go cup. I thought you might like a coffee. Emma stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or slam the door. You tracked me down again to bring me coffee. Well, technically, I already knew where you lived, he said, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. And yes, I brought coffee. Can I come in? Emma hesitated, but something about his expression, genuine, almost hopeful, made her step aside. Sure, but I'm not taking your money, if that's what this is about. Noah chuckled as he stepped inside, taking in the cozy but cluttered apartment. The scent of paint and sawdust lingered in the air, and shelves lined with finished and unfinished crafts framed the small living space. It was a stark contrast to the sterile luxury he was used to. "I'm not here to talk about money," he said, handing her the coffee. "I actually wanted to talk about your work." Emma raised an eyebrow, taking the cup cautiously. "My work?" "Yes. Your craftsmanship is incredible," he said, gesturing toward a painted jewelry box on the shelf. "I haven't seen anything like it in years. Why aren't you selling these in stores?" Emma sighed, setting the coffee down on her table. "Because stores want things mass-produced and cheap. What I do takes time and, well, people like me don't have the resources to compete with big companies." Noah tilted his head, his curiosity piqued. "People like you?" "You know," she said, gesturing to her apartment. "People who don't have trust funds or business connections. People who didn't go to fancy colleges or have investors lining up to support their ideas." There was no bitterness in her tone, just a quiet resignation that made Noah's chest tighten. "What if someone gave you that support?" he asked. Emma laughed, shaking her head. "What, you're going to bankroll my dream? Let me guess, you want a percentage of the profits?" "No," he said, his voice steady. "I just want to help." Emma's smile faded, replaced by a cautious frown. "Why?" Noah hesitated, struggling to put his feelings into words. "Because when you saved me, it wasn't just my life you changed. You made me see things differently. I've spent years chasing success. But for what? More money, more things? None of it feels real, but you're real, and your work deserves to be seen." Emma stared at him, stunned by his honesty. She wanted to believe him, but trusting someone like Noah, a man whose world was so far removed from hers, felt like stepping onto thin ice. "I appreciate what you're saying," she said carefully. "But I don't think you understand how different our lives are. People like you don't just help people like me out of the kindness of their hearts." Noah frowned, her words stinging more than he expected. "Then let me prove you wrong." Emma opened her mouth to respond, but a sharp knock interrupted her. She turned to see her landlord standing in the doorway, a clipboard in hand. "Miss Parker," he said, his tone firm, "we need to talk about your rent." Noah glanced at Emma, his jaw tightening as he pieced together the situation. Emma looked mortified, her cheeks flushing as she stepped outside to talk to the landlord. Their voices were low, but Noah could hear the tension in their exchange. When Emma returned, she avoided his gaze. "I need to get back to work," she said, her voice tight. "Thanks for the coffee." Noah didn't push her. Instead, he nodded and left, his mind racing with thoughts about how to help her without making her feel like a charity case. Later that week, Emma was setting up her booth at the craft fair when she noticed a group of people gathering nearby. At first, she thought it was for another vendor, but then she spotted Noah in the crowd, dressed casually but unmistakably out of place. Her stomach dropped. "What are you doing here?" she hissed as he approached her booth. "Supporting local artists," he said with a grin. "Isn't that what this fair is about?" Emma glared at him, but before she could respond, a woman approached, admiring one of her embroidered scarves. "These are beautiful," the woman said. "Do you sell them online?" Emma hesitated. I don't have a website." "She's working on it," Noah cut in smoothly. "In fact, we're setting up her online store next week." Emma shot him a look of disbelief, but the woman beamed. "That's wonderful. I'll keep an eye out." As the woman walked away, Emma turned to Noah, her hands on her hips. "What was that?" "That," he said, "was me proving you wrong." The warm glow of string lights hung delicately over the ballroom of Seattle's most luxurious hotel, reflecting off crystal chandeliers and marble floors. The annual charity gala was in full swing, and the city's elite mingled over glasses of champagne, exchanging laughter and whispers. It was a world Emma Parker had never stepped into, and one she wouldn't have dreamed of entering until Noah Stone invited her. Emma stood in front of her small bathroom mirror, fidgeting with the neckline of her simple navy dress. She had borrowed it from a friend because she couldn't afford anything remotely suitable for the occasion. Her heart raced as she imagined the evening ahead. What had she been thinking, agreeing to this? A car horn outside snapped her out of her thoughts. She grabbed her purse and headed downstairs, where a sleek black car waited. The driver, dressed in a crisp suit, opened the door for her. She muttered a quiet "thank you" and slid into the back seat, where Noah sat waiting. "You look stunning," he said with an easy smile. He was dressed in a sharp black tuxedo, his hair perfectly styled. His presence filled the space effortlessly, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. "Thanks," she said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up." "You're not," he said firmly. "You're here because you deserve to be. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." His words were kind, but Emma couldn't help wondering if they were empty reassurance. She gave him a small nod, choosing not to argue. The moment they arrived at the gala, Emma felt the weight of countless eyes on her. Heads turned as Noah escorted her into the room, his hand resting lightly on her back. Murmurs spread quickly among the crowd, curious and judgmental. "Who is she?" "She's not one of us, that's for sure." "Maybe it's just a phase." Emma pretended not to hear them, but the heat of embarrassment crept up her neck. Noah leaned in, his voice low. "Ignore them. They don't matter." "Easy for you to say," she whispered back. "You're one of them." His expression darkened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he guided her toward a table near the stage, where other prominent figures were seated. They exchanged pleasantries, but Emma noticed the subtle dismissiveness in their tone when they addressed her. One of them, a blonde woman in a sparkling silver gown, leaned closer to Emma. "You must be new around here. What do you do?" "I'm a craftswoman," Emma said, stumbling over her words. "I make handmade items, jewelry, decorations, things like that." The woman's smile tightened, her eyes scanning Emma with thinly veiled condescension. "How quaint." Emma's face burned, but before she could respond, Noah interjected. "Emma's work is exceptional," he said smoothly. "In fact, I've been thinking about commissioning her to design custom pieces for my offices. Her creativity is unmatched." The woman blinked, clearly surprised, and Emma shot Noah a grateful look. He returned it with a small, reassuring smile. As the evening progressed, Emma began to relax slightly, thanks to Noah's unwavering support. But her sense of ease was short-lived when a striking woman in a deep red gown approached their table. Her movements were graceful and deliberate, her presence commanding attention. "Noah," the woman said with a cool smile. "It's been a while." "Jessica," Noah replied, his tone polite but guarded. "I didn't realize you'd be here tonight." Jessica turned her sharp gaze to Emma, sizing her up. "And who is this?" "Emma Parker," Noah said, his voice steady. "A friend of mine." Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "A friend, Interesting." Emma forced a polite smile, but something about Jessica's tone put her on edge. As Jessica turned her attention back to Noah, Emma excused herself, needing a moment to breathe. She wandered into the quieter corner of the room, where the hum of conversation was less oppressive. She was staring at a piece of modern art on the wall when Jessica appeared beside her. "Quite the event, isn't it?" Jessica said casually, her red lips curling into a faint smile. Emma nodded, unsure of what to say. "You're brave," Jessica continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Most women would think twice before getting involved with someone like Noah." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" Jessica tilted her head, feigning concern. "Oh, I assumed you knew. There's been some controversy surrounding Noah lately. Rumors about financial misconduct, legal investigations. I wouldn't want you to get caught up in something messy." Emma's stomach tightened. That doesn't sound like him. Jessica shrugged. Believe what you want, darling. Just thought you should know. With that, she glided away, leaving Emma with 1,000 unanswered questions. Noah found Emma minutes later standing near the exit with a distant look in her eyes. "There you are," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I was worried." Emma forced a smile. "I just needed some air." "Are you all right?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "Yeah," she lied. "I'm fine." But as they left the gala, her mind raced with Jessica's words. Was Noah hiding something? Could she really trust him? The doubt gnawed at her, threatening to undo the fragile connection they had begun to build. The morning sunlight spilled into Emma's apartment, but it did little to brighten her mood. The words Jessica had spoken at the gala echoed in her mind like a warning bell. As she painted another set of coasters, her hands moved mechanically, the joy she usually found in her work, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. Noah had texted her twice since the gala, his messages light and casual, but she hadn't responded. She couldn't bring herself to. She needed time to sort through her feelings, to figure out if there was any truth to what Jessica had said. "Financial misconduct," Emma muttered under her breath, setting down her paintbrush. Noah didn't strike her as the type to engage in shady dealings, but then again, she barely knew him. How much could she really trust a man whose world was so far removed from hers? Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her thoughts. It was Noah. Again. This time, she picked up. "Hey," he said, his voice warm. "I was starting to think you were avoiding me." Emma hesitated. "I've just been busy." "I get it," he said, though there was a hint of disappointment in his tone. "Look, can we meet for coffee? There's something I want to talk to you about." She hesitated again, torn between the urge to confront him and the fear of what she might find out. Finally, she said, "Okay, coffee." The cafe Noah had chosen was small and quiet, a far cry from the upscale places Emma imagined him frequenting. He was already seated when she arrived, a steaming cup of coffee in front of him. He stood as she approached, smiling in a way that made her heart ache with confusion. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he admitted as she sat down. "Neither was I," Emma said honestly. Noah leaned forward, his expression serious. "Something's on your mind. I can tell." Emma's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "I ran into someone at the gala. Jessica, I think her name was." Noah's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing slightly. "What did she say?" "She mentioned something about you being involved in financial misconduct. Is it true?" The words came out harsher than she intended, but the weight of her doubt demanded an answer. Noah exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Jessica's not exactly a reliable source of information." "That's not a no," Emma pointed out. "Because it's complicated," he said, meeting her gaze. "Jessica was a partner in one of my ventures years ago. She tried to pull some unethical moves, and I cut her out of the deal. She's held a grudge ever since. The rumors she's spreading, they're baseless." Emma studied his face, searching for any sign of dishonesty. "Why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" "Because it's not something I'm proud of," Noah admitted. "I built my company from the ground up, and I've made enemies along the way. People like Jessica will do anything to tear me down. But I promise you, Emma, I've never done anything illegal." His voice was steady, his eyes sincere, but the doubt still lingered in Emma's mind. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Noah leaned back in his chair, his expression pained. "I guess you'll just have to trust me." Over the next few days, Emma tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept circling back to Noah. She wanted to believe him, but trust didn't come easily to her, especially when it came to someone as wealthy and powerful as him. Her decision to keep her distance wavered, however, when she received an unexpected visitor at her booth during a weekend craft fair. "Miss Parker," The man was middle-aged, dressed in a crisp suit that seemed out of place among the handmade trinkets and food stalls. He extended a business card. "I'm James Carter, Noah Stone's legal counsel." Emma froze, her mind racing. "Is something wrong?" "Not at all," James said smoothly. "Mr. Stone asked me to provide you with documentation disproving the claims Jessica Daniels made about him. He thought it might ease your concerns." Emma stared at the folder in his hands. She didn't want to open it, didn't want to admit that Noah had gone out of his way to clear his name for her. But curiosity won out, and she accepted it. Later that night, Emma sat at her tiny kitchen table, the folder spread out before her. Inside were detailed financial reports, legal documents, and even emails proving Noah's innocence and exposing Jessica's attempts to sabotage him. Her heart sank as guilt washed over her. She had doubted him, and he had gone to extraordinary lengths to prove himself. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Noah. "I hope the documents help. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Emma stared at the message, her chest tight with emotion. She knew she owed him an apology. The next evening, Emma showed up unannounced at Noah's office. The receptionist gave her a curious look, but waved her through after a quick call upstairs. When she stepped into Noah's expansive office, he looked up from his desk, surprised. "Emma," he said, standing, "I wasn't expecting you." "I needed to see you," she said, clutching her purse strap nervously. "I read the documents. I know you were telling the truth." Noah's shoulders relaxed slightly. "I'm glad you believe me." "I'm sorry I doubted you," she said, her voice wavering. "It's just, people like Jessica make me feel like I don't belong in your world. Like I'm some outsider who doesn't deserve to be here." Noah crossed the room, stopping just a few feet away from her. "Emma, my world is as much yours as it is mine. And if I've learned anything from knowing you, it's that the world I've built means nothing if I can't share it with someone real." Emma looked up at him, her heart pounding. "Noah, I don't need your world. I just want to know I can trust you." "You can," he said softly. "And I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you." For the first time in days, Emma felt the weight on her chest begin to lift. Maybe, just maybe, she could trust him after all. The early morning light filtered through the windows of Noah's office as he leaned over his desk, scanning a series of reports. The documents confirmed what he had suspected for weeks. Jessica Daniels wasn't just spreading rumors, she was actively trying to sabotage his company. Several anonymous tips had warned his investors about alleged financial irregularities, and a handful of key contracts were suddenly in jeopardy. It was an orchestrated attack, and he knew exactly who was behind it. Noah set the reports down and rubbed his temples. Normally, he would have faced this kind of challenge head-on, but this time it felt personal. Jessica wasn't just targeting his company, she was targeting his relationship with Emma. And after everything Emma had been through to trust him, he refused to let Jessica succeed. Meanwhile, Emma was busy preparing for the opening day of the craft fair. Her booth was fuller than ever, thanks to Noah's encouragement to expand her offerings. She had even created a line of custom pieces inspired by their time together. Despite her initial hesitation, Noah's support had made her believe in herself in ways she hadn't thought possible. But as she worked, an uneasy feeling nagged at her. Noah had seemed distracted lately, and she couldn't shake the suspicion that Jessica's interference wasn't over. She had told herself she wouldn't let people like Jessica dictate her choices, but the doubt still lingered. That afternoon, Emma received an unexpected visitor at her booth. "Emma Parker?" A man in a business suit approached her with a clipboard. His face was blank, almost cold. "I'm here on behalf of a client to discuss your involvement with Noah Stone." Emma's heart sank. "Excuse me? My client has reason to believe that Mr. Stone's recent financial troubles could implicate you." the man said, his voice devoid of emotion. If you're smart, you'll walk away before things get messy. Emma stared at him, her hands tightening into fists. Who sent you? The man smirked. Let's just say someone who doesn't take kindly to people meddling in affairs they don't understand. Before Emma could respond, the man walked away, leaving her shaken and furious. She knew exactly who had sent him. That evening, Emma stormed into Noah's penthouse, her jaw set with determination. He looked up from his laptop, startled to see her. Emma, what's wrong? He asked, standing. You need to tell me what's going on, she said, her voice trembling with both anger and fear. Jessica's not just spreading rumors anymore. She's sending people to threaten me. Noah's face darkened. What did they say? That I should walk away from you, Emma said. That I'll get dragged into whatever mess she's trying to create. Noah, I need to know the truth. How bad is it? Noah sighed and ran a hand through his hair. It's bad, he admitted. Jessica's been feeding false information to my investors and trying to destabilize my company. But I swear to you, I have everything under control. Emma's eyes narrowed. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like it. I'm handling it, Emma, Noah said firmly. I've already gathered the evidence I need to expose her. But this isn't just about my company anymore. It's about us. She's targeting you because she knows what you mean to me. Emma's breath hitched. What I mean to you? Noah stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. Emma, I don't care about the money or the deals. The only thing I care about is you, and I'm not going to let Jessica or anyone else ruin what we have. Emma's anger softened, but her fear remained. Then let me help. Noah frowned. Emma, this isn't your fight. It is now, she said, her voice resolute. We're in this together, Noah. You don't have to do it alone. The next day, Emma and Noah began working together to counter Jessica's schemes. With Emma's sharp eye for detail and Noah's business acumen, they pieced together the full extent of Jessica's plans. Using the documents Noah had gathered, they crafted a strategy to expose her. Emma suggested reaching out to local media outlets to share the truth. If Jessica's going to play dirty, we'll fight back with honesty, she said. People need to know who she really is. Noah hesitated. He had always avoided the spotlight when it came to his personal life, but Emma's determination inspired him. You're right, he said. Let's do it. A week later, a major news outlet published a damning expose on Jessica Daniels, detailing her history of underhanded dealings and her attempts to sabotage Noah. The article included evidence of her schemes, as well as testimonials from former associates who had suffered similar treatment. The fallout was immediate. Jessica's reputation was destroyed, and her influence evaporated overnight. Noah's investors, reassured by his transparency, rallied behind him, and his company regained its footing. But for Noah and Emma, the victory wasn't just about clearing his name, it was about solidifying their partnership. On the night of Emma's craft fair, Noah surprised her by showing up with a group of his colleagues. They admired her work, placing orders and asking about her creative process. For the first time, Emma felt like she truly belonged. As the fair wound down, Noah pulled her aside, his eyes warm. I have something for you, he said, handing her a small box. Emma opened it to find a set of keys. She looked up at him, confused. They're for the storefront down the street, he explained. I rented it for you. It's yours, Emma, a place to build your dream. Tears welled in her eyes. Noah, I can't accept this. Yes, you can, he said gently, because this isn't just a gift, it's an investment. In you, in us, and in the future we're building together. Emma threw her arms around him, her heart overflowing with gratitude and love. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought about the story. See you in the next video.